Man, and that motorcade, there was a lot of love on the side of the road. Every overpass had people on it. It was amazing and gave you goosebumps just to sit in the van and see the reaction of the people of Georgia. It's so good to be here in the Carter Center, the circle of the life of our family for the last years. I'm so proud of Jason for accepting to be our family member on the board. And we're trusting him with my father's legacy now, so it's no pressure. But Dad's aspirations and Mom's dreams have been fulfilled in a large part by the people here, by what he did as president and governor. I want to tell you a little bit about him as a human being. When my brothers and I were 10 years old, we were hired by Carter's Warehouse to put seals, tags, on the top of seed peanut bags. They did 100-pound bags of burlap, and the federal government would get a ticket that said what the germination was and the farm material, and then you climb on top of the bags and you put those tickets on 100 bags. We got paid $0.10 a 100. But if the little husk on the peanut, the pink thing on the little outside of it is cracked, the peanut will not come up. So it's a perfect job for 10-year-olds. And we began to learn there the value of hard work, the value of trusting your neighbors. Most of the people that worked at the warehouse were African American. Our neighbors, the closest one to us, were African American, and they're the ones I spent my Saturdays with. They were my age. We had a wonderful snow sled we brought with us from Connecticut when we came back, and we carved a trail down the side of the canyon across the street from our house. And then we cut a vine off, so if you could go down this thing, and when you got to the bottom, if you actually grabbed the vine, you could swing out over the briars and come back without getting hurt. And then you could use the rope to crawl to the top and then pull the sled behind you. This was on mud. On mud, yes. When I was in the 8th grade, I failed. I brought home at Christmas an F in Latin. I didn't see any reason to learn Latin. Nobody I knew spoke it very much. My father was not pleased. And so the next morning, he came into my room and said, we were on Christmas vacation. He said, you have your Latin book? I said, yes. He said, let me have it. He went to work at Carter's Warehouse. When he came home that night, we spent an hour and a half, him teaching me Latin that he had learned from my book that day. He did that every day of Christmas vacation. And the first day of the school year after Christmas, I went to my teacher and asked her if she'd let me take the final over again that she had given us, the midterm test. And she said yes. So after school that day, I took that test, and I made 100. I owed it to my father, who spent that kind of time with me. He was the Boy Scout leader in our town. One day we were trying to get our merit badges in hiking, and so we took a 6-mile hike to our pond on one of the farms, about 20 of us in the Boy Scouts. We had a great time. We had hot dogs and marshmallows and whatever, and had the big fire going. And at the end of all that, Dad started telling ghost stories. And one particularly bad one at the end was very gross. He claimed it happened on our farm. And so he told us to all go to bed. Well, we were just sitting there not knowing what to do. And after a little while, we decided that we would use the buddy system to go into the woods to use the bathroom after dark, so that we could all get some relief before we went to sleep, because we were sure that we were going to be attacked when we got there. I want to thank all of you here, as Jason said, because Dad's legacy from Georgia and his governor's office and from the presidency was a little bit rough at the end of it because of our opposition and the way they framed us. which was probably somewhat true and somewhat not. But all this stuff after that is in the hands of the people that worked here and that still work here now. I see many people here that I don't recognize. And I welcome you to come. I welcome you to spend your time doing the kind of things that my parents love to do and love for us to do. And I need to thank some other people too. The hospice folks that looked up to my father for 22 months were amazing. Every week we got a report from them on how he was doing, what we could do to make him more comfortable. And it gave us a lot of confidence, and it gave us the ability to think about him in a different kind of way. And then we had caregivers. One of them is here in the audience. Cynthia was with my father for 6 years. They became my father's friends. They are the people that help keep him alive and comfortable and fed and cleaned and doing all that kind of stuff that we didn't want to do. It was amazing what they did for us. And another thing I'd like to say is I'd like to thank my family. You know, when you're president of the United States, you're thinking about your family, but you're not interacting with them very much. His job was so much more than doing family stuff, so we didn't lose touch, but you had to get an appointment in advance. And that giving up of that time and sharing that was something that affected our family because we didn't have our parents as much as we could have. And I want to thank them for the sacrifice that they made and all that they gave. I was lucky 7 years ago. For the 5 years, I went to see my parents 3 nights, 2 days, a little plus, every week for 5 years. I took over the farm from him. He liked that because he was able to boss me around every day. But I actually was able during that time to become friends with my parents, something I never expected. To be able to sit down and talk to them like human beings instead of the boss. It was an amazing thing for me, something I'll always cherish. And then hospice came, and my brother Jeff and my sister Amy and my bride Becky and I split it up so I didn't have to go every week. I only went every 4th week, which was kind of amazing. But 2 weeks every month, Becky and I were apart, and that was difficult for all of us. But he was an amazing man, and he was held up and propped up and soothed by an amazing woman. And the two of them together changed the world. And it was an amazing thing to watch from so close and to be able to be involved in. And I thank you for your service.